Good evening, friends, and thank you for joining us for a new venture here at the Life, Marriage and Family team in the Archdiocese of Sydney called Parenting Conversations. Our aim is to have a set of 4 episodes where we'll be looking at the parenting issues and characteristics and all those wonderful things that we can learn from different episodes in our children's lives. We'll be starting from birth, the early years, episode 1. We'll be looking at the pre-teen period, the tween period. We'll be looking at the teenage period, and then finally we'll be looking at that young adulthood time where our children, our young adults in our families go off with confidence into the world. Tonight, episode 1, we are very, very privileged to be speaking to Mrs. Marina Haines. Welcome, Marina.
Good morning, Steve. Good evening.
Good evening. There we go. Marina, thanks for joining us today. I'm very, very excited to be starting off this first episode in conversation with yourself. We've known each other for many years, and I would have to say, and as would my wife Stella, that we have been very, very blessed not only to have you as a dear friend, but also as a mentor through many, many years. You've also mentored many of our young daughters. So first of all, thank you very much for that. And thank you again for being here this evening. Marina, I might just look over to the side and make sure that I do justice in introducing you. Marina, you're a mother of 8 children,
Yes.
grandmother of 9. And I like how you said so far. Thanks be to God, looking forward. Blessed and happily married to Gregory, 50 years. There you go, a golden jubilee. What a blessing. Founding principal, former principal of Montgrove College out in Sydney's west. You have a career in education spanning 40 years. So everyone out there listening, 40 years, very, very experienced. You're currently the parent coordinator at Montgrove College. And just in that role, it's a mentoring formation role. And I like how you put there, you're an avid gardener. There's so many avid gardeners right now during this lockdown period. Do you want to tell us a little bit about your expertise with the ukulele?
Oh, the ukulele. I thought you were going to say with the garden. I would hope you wouldn't ask about the garden because it's just a battleground of insects and fungus and who knows what.
Clover.
Oh, clover.
That's my problem.
Yeah. Oh, anyway, that's fun. But ukuleles, look, I've been playing the uke since I was a kid. And when we started Montgrove College, we needed a music program. So enter the ukulele, and it's stayed ever since. And it's now at our boys' school, Wallamai College as well. And we run it right through the primary years, and the children who persevere and show promise and so on join the group that's called Monty's Ukes. That's a performance group, which we enter in Eisteddfods very successfully, if I might say so. Just don't let me brag or anything like that. But look, there we go. It's wonderful for the children because they don't just learn to strum and sing and so on, but they learn actually how to perform, how to present. And what I love in the mornings when it's uke morning, they're all there outside waiting for the gates to open, and you can hear them playing along and singing along. And I think, what a wonderful thing. And someone the other day, you'll have to stop me, Steve, or I'll go on about ukuleles all day, but someone sent me a clip from home with all of their kids and their kids' mates and all the rest of it singing around, and they're young adults by now, still with their ukes jamming away. And I thought, go the uke. There you are. That's ukuleles.
Well, I thought of you yesterday because I was watching an adventure documentary, and it was based in the outback Kings Canyon up in the Northern Territory. Yeah. And they were having breakfast and all the beautiful bird sounds, and one of the presenters pulls out a ukulele. What a great gift he gave to the people around that little breakfast time. And when he left, everyone they were just calling him back. We want more, we want more. So yeah, I thought of you yesterday in that regard. Marina, let's get into it a little bit. Would you like to tell us a little bit about yourself? We're talking about parenting, maybe a little bit about your background and in a way that it might relate to what we're talking about today.
Oh, well, I grew up in Sydney. In fact, I grew up in Manly, and very specifically on the Queenscliff headland, overlooking the bay there, right out to the then St Patrick's Seminary, and right across. We used to say we could see New Zealand as kids, you know. Anyway, on a clear day, and Wales and so on. So a beautiful place to grow up, and it also influenced me a lot, you know, growing up so much part of the sea. I can't remember when I couldn't swim, for instance. And also, it was the background to my schooling, St Mary's Manly, and followed by Stella Maris College Manly, which is actually at Queenscliff as well, which, you know, down the hill and around the corner, and there you go for me. So it was a wonderful childhood from that point of view, and also from the point of view of my parents. I had two very loving parents, um, standard kind of 1950s home life, you know, simple when I look back on it now, simple but good, simple but very good. And it's the same with all of my friends. There was a tremendous amount of simplicity. So I don't know if that helps. I was brought up
Helps. That
very,
helps for
yeah,
sure. For
very
sure.
strongly in the faith as well. My parents were a very rare thing for their time. They were tertiary educated Catholics, self educated, which was pretty remarkable. They were Bible literate and all sorts of things. So it's just pretty astounding when I think back on it. Didn't think much of it at the time, but look, stood me in good stead. So there we go. That's about it, Steve.
Well, I suppose even in the field of data, that every good study would always point to that influence that we take from our own parents as generally the biggest influences. I think even before the recent synod in the Vatican focused on youth, what came out of that was that the number one influence on our young people are their parents.
Absolutely.
And oftentimes we can be quite surprised because we start to think that it's our peers or the media, but it's remained consistently our parents. Marina, in the introduction, we mentioned that you're even up to today very well experienced and still practicing or presenting in the area of parent formation. How did you yourself get involved in that more intentionally to the point now where you're so passionate about this aspect?
Mm, it goes back quite a long way. I suppose it actually does go back to my upbringing, but and also the fact that I'm a teacher and will get up and talk, you know, at the drop of a hat, sort of thing. Um, but I saw the need um, in my early married life, really, for how important this was to do, to actually talk about parenting. And I used to give talks even at that stage on parenting skills, just to other young mums in the area and this kind of thing. And then after the children got to a certain age, I went back into teaching. I was fortunate to be able to take 16 years off, if you like to put it that way, or 16 years on, if you want to look at it that way, um, to raise the kids. And then when the little bloke was 5, he and I went back to school, so to speak. And from then on, I was still giving those talks, that kind of thing. But it was when I was asked by the PAR Ed Foundation, Parents for Education, if I would be prepared to set up a school in the outer west of Sydney at Orchard Hills. Um, that I knew that the concept of parent formation would be right at the foreground, because that's what the PAR Ed Foundation does. It puts parents first educators, primary educators, and that's the mainspring, the main uh, focus, fundamental of the actual education, is that recognition of parents in that role. So consequently, these schools have always had a very, very strong mandate for parent formation, as well, obviously, for student formation, but the primacy of parenting. So does that answer the question?
It does. So what I would like to do now is we use the word parenting just as a general word in every day.
Mm,
But I've already mentioned this focus on intentional parenting. That's
yeah.
the whole aim of this series. What is parenting? We can take it for granted, can't we? But
Look, we can. It's a big thing. I mean, we could just biologically, it's pretty obvious what
mm,
parenting is.
mm, mm,
But parenting in a more inclusive sense, or as you were saying, intentional parenting, or even along the lines of what we have done and continue to do at Montgrove College, to me, it's very clear that parenting is bringing up those children to be in children, people of integrity, very much so, people, and in terms of the Catholic faith, of course, children who love God and practice their faith. Fortunately, good parenting is not just a Catholic preserve, it's a universal call to bring your children up to do good and avoid evil at the very basis. So I suppose that's what I would say.
we're going to be very specific soon with the early years. Just on that last comment, the universality of parent, and we could look at every civilization where they would have
Mm,
a certain
cool.
code of ethics
Uh-huh.
in how they live, but also in regards to how you would bring up children. Not all of those communities and not every ethical code respected, the dignity of
Mhm.
children, and we know that through history. In the Christian dispensation, and we don't have to dwell on this for too long, but what can we say about parenting in light of how we're called to bring up our children as Christians?
As Christians, our Christian dispensation in the fear and love of God, I would say, just uh, has to be first and foremost in terms of parenting. And then there are a lot of other things that to bring them up strongly in the virtues is because you can talk about love of God and all the rest of it, but if they don't have these specific virtues of courage and so on, well, they'll just plain give in and wander away. So to me, it's a whole box and dice thing. But of course, God comes first, needless to say.
I like how you just said, and they wander away. Isn't that like the fear of every parent, and
Uh-huh, sure is.
the experience
Mm.
even of so many of us that we're trying our best, um,
Mhm.
and then we get to that point in the adult years, even late teenage years, where we know there has to be this emphasis on freedom. We can even second guess ourselves up. How are we going? But anyway, that's why I want to start here. The early years. Let's define the early years.
Early years, I would say birth to say 8 or 9 and beyond. But the primacy of bringing children up well from the earliest year, from when they're born through to the age of 5, I think's pretty critical. So that's what
Yeah.
I would say.
I want to just pose this question again. We don't have to talk about it for long. Um, do we talk about parenting when mum has little baby in her tummy?
Well, I suppose you could. She's
Yeah,
obviously a parent at that point.
yeah,
Um, how do you parent a child when it's in the tummy? Well, people would say play Mozart or something, wouldn't they? Or eat a lot of
yeah,
kale. I don't
yeah,
know.
yeah,
Bring on the kale and the
yeah,
Mozart. But
yeah,
to me, that is for me, at any rate, I can speak for
mm,
myself, was the absolute prime time to be praying for that child.
mm, mm,
That's to me, that's just goes without saying, really.
mm. I like asking that question because it really obviously names the fact that the child in the womb is a child,
Mhm.
um, and not just a potential child, but it's true. And it's such a special time, especially for first up parents,
Yes.
to be very conscious of that. And it's such a beautiful opportunity, especially by way of praying for that child,
Oh,
to be very close straight away, and to even heighten the expectation of that child coming into the world and
yes.
taking its first breath. Okay, let's go. Um, First question. What would you say are the most important elements in helping children? And I found this interesting from the get go, to use their freedom well.
Oh yes, yes. Well, I think that's crucial, because you can bring children up. I suppose you could actually do a Pavlov's dogs and train children in that way, but unless they freely choose throughout their life and are learning to do that from the earliest years, how can they love? How can they love? Because freedom, it's an exercise in freedom to love what is good. Now, when little children are born, as we know, the first thing they do, if we're lucky, is they yell their heads off, and they're yelling their heads off for food. So, needless to say, also, if they didn't yell their heads off, they mightn't get fed, and it's a wonderful it's a wonderful mechanism for support for their life survival. But that screaming to get what you want can continue in ways that are not good for survival for the child, or for anybody else around them, really. So that's something. Of course we feed them, and that goes on, and we whatever they need, we give them their needs. But there is a thing as they get a little bit older, and it comes in very young, really, just as they're crawling and this and that. If they're reaching up to touch something on a coffee table or whatever, and we can't, we go no, no, and you get that word no in there very, very quickly, for their own safety, obviously, but then also no, because what they are wanting is not going to help them develop their freedom, develop their virtues, in short. So that's where that training comes in very, very young indeed, and it mightn't even be sort of training. I don't know, but I would say very, very early on in the first year, and then it goes on from there, because the idea is for the little one to want to do what is good, their own will, their freedom of their own accord, to choose the right thing to do. Now we've got the formus peccati, we've got the original sin, we've got everything else, and left to ourselves, we want to do what we want to do, a good, bad, or indifferent. Just we wanna, and that's it. And that's quite natural. So unfortunately, it's not supernatural, but there you go. So this thing of training children from the word go to choose to do the good.
I found myself, now that we've got two young grandchildren, and they come over a couple of times a week. It's almost like a second chance.
Lovely.
Had all this time with our own children, now also the grandchildren come along. There's a second chance there, and I'm much more sensitive just to intonation and little waggles of the finger without saying anything, and just watching very intently the reaction to exactly what you're saying. When they're displaying, behavior that's a bit exaggerated, and that's exaggerated, and they're testing you out, but what you're saying exactly there, you might not, unless you're being very, again, intentional in or sensitive to what's happening, and how you're reacting to it as in this case, a grandparent. You can just let that go by. So certainly, what gets in the way of that child developing into, I suppose, this discipline, this habit? Is it the parent, or is it the child, or is it both?
At this stage, I'd say the child has got free will, so they've got their own intention to get what they want. But what can get in the way of that is parents who give in to children who are upping the ante on trying to get what they want. And one of the things that we all notice drives us all mad, and that's whinging. Whinging and whining and carrying on. And you see it in supermarkets. You check out, you'll be lining up, when's my turn? And there'll be some child ahead of you there, some little child, and there'll be a kindy surprise or whatever. And they start on their mum. I want to be, I want it, just give it to me. No, no, you're not having it now. I've told you that 100 times. I'm not going to give you anything but the checkout. Let's be quiet. No. And then they embarrass the mother into saying, well, this time, but just this time, don't do it again. And there's this giving in to this. I saw a little caption once on a cartoon. It was a mum reprimanding a child and saying, in this house, we do not speak whinge-ease. I thought, yeah, whinge-ease, okay. But they're main things, and it's then the parent giving in. It's not in the best interest of the child. It's not in the best interest of the parent. It's only in that case the best interest of the person, the manufacturer. So look, yeah.
Hold firm, parents.
Well, there's no two ways about that. I would say that consistency and boundaries, I'll go on about that a bit later on, are absolutely critical.
Okay, let's talk about building fortitude. What's the importance of this?
Well, we're talking about parents needing fortitude, not giving into whinges and all of the rest of it. But the children themselves need this virtue. It's absolutely critical in not just in a peaceful home or all the rest of it, but for their own education through school. I mean, I could go on and on and on about that in terms of schooling, but I won't.
Maybe we should define fortitude just at this point.
Okay, I would say in what's called intestinal fortitude or grit or courage or the ability to say no to yourself, I would say in particular, because not all children, some really get up and go and they're on the go all the time and they do this, they do that. But a lot of children, and particularly as they get older, become very lazy and self-focused type lazy as well. There's a quote, I love it, from the prophet Amos, where he talks about revelers sprawling on their ivory divans. Now, personally, it always amused me because I couldn't think of anything more uncomfortable than an ivory divan myself, but just the same, and particularly as kids get older, you see teenagers in particular or children who sleep in a bit, say, on a Saturday morning, and you say, it's time to get up now, and they struggle from up to the nearest armchair and slommock, this is it. I call it slommocking. It's an invented word, but I think it's...
That's two words now, whinges and slommocking. We'll have to supply a glossary.
A glossary, that's it, parenting. But anyway, those slommockers, absolutely not. Kids that just don't get up and out of bed. You know what I better stop in a minute, Steve, and not so I get through this. When I'm talking mentoring little students at school, I have a very big number of little kids, and in their infants' years, I say, do you get out of bed on time? No. Do you get up out of bed when Mum calls you? Yes. And then they have to make little resolutions with Mrs. Haines. This is their thing. And a very, very common resolution for little children is to become a jack-in-the-box. Wake up in the morning, come on, jack-in-the-box. Out you get. And when I meet up with them next time, I say, how are you going with the jack-in-the-box? Oh, it's going good. Oh, sometimes I think, right, keep working at it. Because unless you get children that are prepared to get up, get at it, this is as they get a bit older, we're not talking babies, but very young, 4 or 5 years of old, pull that bed up, get it neat and tidy, get yourself out there. There is lost the first battle. I know St. Jose Maria used to call it the heroic minute. So if they do it long enough, it's no longer heroic, let's face it. But just the same, a very, very good practice. So that's it. I would say laziness. They get it out, that they actually develop that backbone, develop that grit, and learn to say no to themselves from the first minute of the day.
Well, you mentioned the heroic minute, and that's exactly what I was thinking. I think I had a conversation again last year at this time with Bishop Umbers about the heroic minute, and I suppose how that impacts us as adults. So back to fortitude, it's really, we spoke about those questions that you asked those little children, but it's something that should exist within the family setting, shouldn't it?
Oh, absolutely. Yes, absolutely. And that's why when I am mentoring little children, that's also something that I'm also not mentoring so much, but talking with the parents. I let them know that that's what's on, and but the children are very honest. They'll say, oh yes, it's really working well, and this and that. Tremendous impact in the home when you've got children who are happy enough to say no to themselves and get up and get at it, that they've got enough grit and determination to just get going.
So what we're saying here is, mum and dad, what's your level of fortitude? Maybe that's not part of it, of our vocabulary even today. We don't, again, think about how important it is for our own lives. We talk about words like setting habits and, being disciplined. But there's a very real sense of fortitude. Even I suppose myself, and my children do a very good job of making me aware of this. When I sit down at the dinner table, that phone goes away. This addictive tendency that we can have to always having to check,
Yes,
to
yes,
see
yes,
that,
yes.
message or an email that's come through. I mean, they're very real concrete examples of
Uh-huh.
fortitude, besides, the waking up on time, those good habits in the way that we speak to people. But I like that, the grit, the overcoming of, especially those habits that maybe other people are naming that we don't like them naming,
Mhm,
you know.
mhm.
The saying, virtue is its own reward. Do do children, is it hard for them to understand that, and then even believe that?
I don't think they need to understand it or believe it. Actually, I think parents do.
Mm,
If the uh, and even harking back to what you just said there, Steve, about mobile phones and the like,
mm,
it's a case of monkey see, monkey do, isn't it?
of
Really,
course, yeah.
but that's in absolutely everything. If we slommick on our ivory divans while our children are told to get up on time, well, forget it. But just the same, um, is virtue its own reward? Yeah, it actually is, but that is when it becomes something that you actually want to do, and that's really what we're, as I said, I think at the beginning, we're trying to have our children want to do the things that are right. Of course, they need to see it as an example, because forget it, absolutely, if not. So it does require parents who are actually on a trajectory of trying to live the virtues better themselves in their everyday life. Absolutely. That I didn't sort of stress that. I will get around to stressing it, but I've stressed it in the middle as well here of our conversation, that our children need to know that their home is our home, and that we are working together on this wonderful project. Now, I would never use those words to children. Oh, maybe I would, I don't know. But certainly when they're whinging and whining because they can only find one sock, the reason being that they didn't put both in the wash or whatever kind of thing, that's not a respect of the work of their mother. It's not a respect of the home. It's a disorder, it wastes time, it causes stress, and blah, 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 blah. So, really, even the smallest things go against that concept that they need to be brought up. No, this is our home. We're going to do it this way. This is what we do in our home. We stress that. It doesn't have to have label of justice or something on it. It is a matter of justice, of course, something as small as that, but we don't need to say that. No, not
Yeah,
here.
sorry. I love that. I love what you're saying there. That we're all together in this. But I just want to spin back a little bit, if you don't
Uh-huh.
mind, Marina, to freedom,
Uh-huh.
because that's what I'm hearing. I'm hearing, that at this time, like when I think of freedom, and I suppose this is what I'm admitting to here, I always looked at it in the later years, but in this in these very early years, in talking about, as you have, about free will, and even in that practical nature, that in the grit of putting socks in that are turned out the right way.
Exactly.
That's right. I know that Stella has these signs
Yes.
in our laundry. Turn your socks out.
Go, Stella.
That's it. Put the she's got 3 laundry baskets, for the colours, and
that's right.
all these little habits, and we still see different colours in the baskets,
Okay.
and
Yes,
there's
yes.
all the choices along the way. But
Yeah.
can I just come back to freedom at that early age, and what we have to move away from is, in time when they're younger, I suppose we have to help them set these habits, and it can sometimes seem and even sound like an imposition on their freedom, but we want to draw them out of that so they actually are choosing to act in this way because they find it reasonable. They find it a reasonable way to act in this family setting that we're all part of and all responsible for.
Mm.
Do you think that there are difficulties with children in coming to comply with what we do ask of them? Is that that's reasonable to?
Oh, absolutely. It's called original sin. There is only one person I know of that didn't have that problem, But yes, absolutely. Our will is not some lovely, straightforward thing. It does not want to comply. It doesn't want to comply with mum, dad, teachers, anybody. But let run riot. We see what happens with that at jails, for one thing, But at one end of the spectrum. But all of us, we all know we've got to fight in order to do the right thing. St. Paul makes very strong noises about that, fighting the inward man. I've got to misquote here, that doesn't want to do what he has to do and so on. Who does? What child wants to stand in Stella's laundry, Steve, and get their dirty socks, put their hands in and pull them out the right way? Okay? Nobody wants to do that. Doesn't matter. Doesn't want to do it. And that just goes all the way through the things that we have to do. And it's the same as adults. We've all got our own thing where we don't want to comply, and we've got to fight that. Now, we do or do not know that. Hopefully we do know it, but we need our children to know that they do need to actually wage this war, if you like. But we don't need to talk about that. We just need to say, no, you will do this because that's better for the family or whatever sort of thing. But I would say, in terms of helping children to do the right thing in the family setting, to me, the most important thing is to do that with affection, is to do that in a positive way, because it's not an army barracks. You can get compliance through very, very dubious means for children. It's called fear, and there's no place for fear when it comes to being children of God. The only thing we need to fear is, as they say, fear itself. But I would say at the flames of hell, we're not going to be worrying about that with tiny little children. So, Steve, you were asking me about some of the things that make it difficult for parents to have children comply or grow or develop grit or all the rest of it. I would say that inconsistency on their own part is one of the most difficult things. There is something that's absolutely critical, and that is that parents have a united policy in how they're going to bring their children up. I would say that's one of the tip-top things, really. If parents are inconsistent in that and children know that they can run to mum to undermine dad or vice versa, you've lost the game. It's not just for yourselves, but the child's lost the game too when they think they can argue the toss like that. So that united policy is absolutely critical. And so is sincerity. Children that hear their parents tell so-called white lies are in for a lot of trouble, because the difference between a white, a black and a grey, and a green and a pink lie for a child does not exist. A lie is a lie is a lie. Maybe that's a good advice for parents too, I don't know. But that thing of, no, you can have it if you're very good, and then they're not quite good enough, and you slide the goalposts around and things like that, or they overhear you tell. Anyway, sincerity crucial. And the other thing that will dig away at our parenting things is overindulging children. And I'll go on about that more. And certainly, in terms of that, just giving into them at the drop of a hat, because then they give into themselves at the drop of a hat. So it goes on. So I would say those things make it very difficult.
So you talked about the wingies, and especially with the young children at the shopping centres when they're 2, 3, 4 years of age.
Mm-hmm.
Then they hit school, where they're exposed to so many other behaviours of their fellow little kindy classmates, etc. Are there bigger and newer problems because of this? I'm imagining so. That was my experience, but do you want to maybe break that apart a little bit?
I'd love to break it apart. I'd love to break it up altogether, actually, toss it out, because I think one of the biggest things, and it's not so much in preschool years, it can start there, but certainly at school age, and then forever after that, and that's consumerism. It comes in so early. It really does. There's having children think that it's important to have designer this and designer that if they were asked to wear their brother's hand-me-down whatever, they would just have a total meltdown. These kinds of things, there's no place for them. That they should know, because this is the way we live, that you have what you need, and you thank God for that, because not everyone does. That's it. Just that you don't need more than that, really. But consumerism is so all-pervasive, and I mean, I'm not just saying I'm immune to consumerism, because I'm not. It's just like Aladdin's cave. We live in Aladdin's cave. It's too easy. So that is something that parents need to be very, very aware of, that they don't give in to consumerism themselves or with their kids. And then the other thing that we see is how cheap things can be. Little plastic things you get as a freebie and all the rest of it. And we end up with this huge problem in the whole wide world of plastic and stuff, just going around and around of things that were a 2-second wonder. And we can look at ourselves as well as our children with that, just giving into this sort of thing, and the gimme, gotta have consumerism. I would say that's a major thing. There are other things as well, but that's a major thing.
Well, that's a really good one to point out. And we, again, in my own mind, I wouldn't have been thinking consumerism at that age, but we see that, don't we, just in the change that is expected in the jogger for the new year, new school year, new jogger. And then we can see that progress to where it is now, if even young children in primary school, where they've got to have the latest mobile phone.
Yeah.
I've seen children in upper primary with phones that are many models ahead of what I'm using. So I mean, that's an easy habit to pick up, which can be embedded in their thinking from so early on.
Right. Yeah.
Okay, what else poses difficulties at this age? That's a big one that can affect their whole lifetime. But
I would say just, and it springs a bit from that consumerism, and that's superficiality. Now, I'm not suggesting that we have little Aristotles at the age of 5. A bit of it doesn't hurt, mind you, if they're that way inclined. But a superficiality that's rooted in a pop culture. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with pop culture, but when it's the only culture I am, very definitely, that children are not growing up with a sense of culture. The depth of Western culture, or even Eastern culture, or any other culture, something at its very depth, not brought up with the classics, not brought up with a love for words, poetry, whatever they'd say, poetry, what's that? To me, is very, very important. A lot of people wouldn't think so. They would think, so. I think there's a lot so, and I think that loss of religion goes along with that as well, because that, as well as anything else, is also deeply cultural. So I see those things as extremely important, that with little children, they're brought up with a love for things other than pop culture. Don't know whether that makes sense.
What are some examples?
I sound like a wowser.
Well,
sorry to be a wowser, but I think
no. This is really important because we see this happening around us. We're seeing this happening around us, and when we do listen to these cultural conversations around us, such as cancel culture, which is mainstream now. We're seeing that happen. It comes back down to what you're saying, to this superficiality that we can have, where we're not thinking for ourselves, or we're not helping our children think for themselves. We're not exposing them to the beautiful cultural gifts that we've been given from previous generations. What can parents do very practically, in terms of encouraging their children to, I suppose, indulge in a very positive way with good poetry? What are some examples?
Or with that, you can just bring them up, I would say, from the preschool years there, to listen to the classics of, we're reading to them. I needn't go over what the classics are. We will know what they are. And so it goes on. And it doesn't necessarily mean Mozart, but it does mean an appreciation of things that they hear in the background, the things that we are interested in. If you're interested in racing cars, they'll be interested in racing cars. Footy. So it goes on. So as long as there's a healthy group of things that we can actually bring them up with, way to go. But I would say top of the pops there for what parents can do is parents need to pray with their children. So I was saying religion is cultural as well as anything else. And if our homes are places where it's normal to say grace, it's normal to do a morning offering, it's normal to pray to guardian angels when you get in the car, it's normal to stop for an angelus, this kind of thing, to go to mass during the week, whatever it happens to be. If this is just normal, then normal's good. Normal's very good. The other thing that's crucial is that parents spend time with their children. This is like a hackneyed saying, but it can be more and more difficult because of work things and all the rest of it, but not just. If they can't speak to their dad because he happens to be watching State of Origin, no, wait a minute, that's a bad one. Of course, no one would want to talk to their dad during State of Origin. I think you take the point that we have to be there for them. The united parenting is crucial. Consistency is crucial. And another thing is high expectations. High expectations. Not talking about encouraging a 5-year-old to be a medical doctor or a lawyer or something when they leave school, but to have high expectations just in the way they do their everyday things. So they have that touch of gold, that touche d'or, if you like, when they are actually doing things. Schoolwork, homework, those socks should turn out the right way, all that kind of thing. The expectation is there. This is our home. This is how we do it. And that there's an actual climate of encouragement within the home. Well done should be one of the things. Now, people would disagree with me on that, but I don't care. I always like to hear well done if I've done something well. That concept that there is that we're working as a team. There's love in this house. Good on you for doing this, for doing that. And if they hear that and perish the thought that they should ever hear anything like you're always lazy or you're such a klutz, all this, no way, no negative, there's no need for negative comments. They stick, they hurt. Anyway, I'm not going on. That's it.
No, I think that's beautiful. Probably my biggest learning is, as a parent myself, is the right use of affirmation, and to be looking for opportunities to affirm. So, and that's hand in hand with expectations. So we have expectations, and I have to say, guilty of this, that when the expectations aren't met, that there's in my own case, I'll admit to this, that there has been a turning away. But part of my learning, and this is the beautiful thing as a parent, that we say we're learning. We're never perfect parents. We always can be better parents. There's a real redemption in that thinking. I can be a better parent
Yes.
from this very moment
Yes,
now.
that's right.
I mean, that was a turning point in my own life to have that. I think I got that from Dr. Meg Meeker, a book she wrote
Yes.
for
Yes.
parent for dads.
Yeah.
But I mean, to then take on that sensitivity to how my children are working in light of those expectations that I have. And then when they live by that expectation, the fruits are there, to actually say, to have a conversation around that, which then lends itself to the freedom that they see it very reasonable to act this way, that this is the outcome of when I do act in this, very positive manner. And then they take on board that they want to continue acting like that. So I think when we look at these things and we're mindful of them, just like we learn how to be better parents, that's what we want for our children, that they see that this is a reasonable way to live, that what mum and dad are kind of sharing with us, their expectations are actually, that's how most of the world works and works well. So it's not too hard to take on. Okay, we've spoken about quite a lot, and we can't go on indefinitely, even though you can keep stretching every element of this conversation. Let's kind of finish this conversation with what is the most important. What's the most important thing that I can do right now with my child who is in this early age period?
I don't know whether this is in order of priorities, but I would say strong boundaries, like done with text to colour for young children. This is so far and no further from mum and dad, parental unity. I would say that other than a life of prayer, which is paramount, the most important thing we can give our children, please God, doesn't always work out this way, is a good marriage. A good marriage would just be, I don't know, that would be the prize of prizes within the home. And anything that can be done to improve the marriage and so on, way to go. So, and I would think that just a little 3-word affirmation, if anything, were a takeaway for just in terms of parenting very young children, is that we give them our attention, that we give them our approval, and that we give them our affection. Those 3 things, attention, affection, and approval, go a long way in any kind of parenting. We want to bring up children with a lot of fortitude, with a lot of everything, really, with a lot of everything. That's what I would say, Steve.
Let's go over those 3 again. Affection.
Yes. That's
attention.
It. Yes, we give them our attention, our time. Yes.
And last one again?
Is our approval. Approval. Those 3 things.
Okay.
I came across that the other day. I had pinned those 3 words on the back of my bedroom door, hanging on my bedroom door, all these scarves and things, and I'd forgotten all about it. And I was getting down the family tartan scarf, and there underneath it was attention, approval, affection. Still stuck on, because I had thought this is so important to remember when parenting little kids.
Okay, well, I know what I'm going to go and do right now. I'll stick that on the back of every door. It's just hit me in the head, bang, bang.
I might just go have a cup of coffee. No, okay.
We all know that's so true. We all know that's so true. But I think to actually see it and to be living a parenting life by those 3 words changes lives. It changes lives, not just our own lives, but obviously our children's lives. Okay, I'm just going to finish just by sharing something that a young mum said to me just in these last couple of days. It's a little bit outside of what we've been speaking about, but I just think it's a nice way to finish. It's quite interesting because the data is telling us right now that birth rates are dropping all around the world, and I suppose if it's not obvious now, there's already people talking about the correlation to COVID and the uncertainty of our time and all that. So this young mum who recognised and named how difficult it is to live in Sydney at the moment financially, the busyness and the impact that it's putting on them as a newly married couple of 3 years. She said she still has this desire to storm the world with children in spite of all this difficulty. Is this reasonable? Is it doable in this day and age?
You better bring him up, right? It'll be an awful storm. Is it reasonable? I don't know. There's something from the Gospels that I could probably say is one of the most important lines that, in my whole life, really, from a very early age, and certainly in the early years of our marriage, and that was, "Seek first the kingdom of God and his glory, and all the rest will be given unto you." So I don't know about storming with kids, but I think that I think that's wonderful. I think it's wonderful.
Well, that's for sure. Everything is definitely doable, especially in the sphere of parenting and when we feel supported. And especially when we're using, Marina, your threefold strategy: attention, affection, and affirmation. Love it. And definitely going to continue to seek to more intentionally put that into practice. Well, thank you very much, Maria. That's the end of our episode 1, where we're looking specifically at the parenting in the early years. Thank you, everyone, for joining us here this evening. I hope you took away a lot, and a lot that, along with myself, that you're going to seek to put into practice. Join us again next week. We'll be looking at episode 2, the tween years, those pre-teen years, and we'll be speaking with Dr. Andrew Mullins. He's the author of Parenting for Character, and he'll join us same time, same evening, Thursday evening next week. Thanks, everyone. It's been a pleasure to host this series. Thank you again to Marina. Take care, everyone, and God bless you. Bye-bye.